And hello, movie lovers. And tonight I actually have Abby, Lady of Motor City Nerds, with me. And I am House of MLU. And we're actually going to be doing our Game of Thrones House of the Dragon spoiler review for episode 1, Heir to the Throne. So, with further ado, let's go on ahead and get. Hey, Abby, how are you doing?
I've been better, but I'm better now that we're going to be talking about House of the Dragon.
I know. I've been wanting to do a Game of Thrones after show for a long ass time. It's a privilege to have you on the show talking about House of the Dragon. And of course, this is actually set 172 years before the death of the Mad King, Aerys, and the birth of his daughter, Princess Daenerys Targaryen. So this is actually something that that I was actually interested in because I remember reading the synopsis of it whenever they were first starting out with this, right? And I was like, okay, this is going to be about the Iron Throne in itself, about how it fell. And this is kind of like the prequel to The Hobbit in a sense, about how everything is set up.
Yeah. Because now, when this was first announced, okay, I grabbed this just in case. Don't worry, I'm not going to get too much in detail, but it is off of Fire and Blood, which is Targaryen history. Now, I originally thought when they first announced it, it was going to be about the first Targaryen, Aegon the Conqueror. And then when they went with this civil war that goes on, I was like, oh, this is either going to be a really good place to start or really a bad place to start. But either way, I'm pumped. And I was like, oh, okay, let's do this. I'm really excited to see where they go with it.
I am too, as well, to be honest with you, because I wasn't sure how they were going to do, especially coming off of how Game of Thrones ended. I'm like, am I really excited to see a Game of Thrones spin-off show, or am I not? And so now, going into it, I'm actually pumped. It's great to actually go back into the places that we actually know about, King's Landing, the heir of Targaryens, and stuff like that. And, I like how the theme song is actually being played out a little bit differently than what we have in the couple of seasons that we had before. But now it's like, okay, we got to go on ahead and put out our theme song. And I love how they're doing it throughout the whole entire first episode. So I definitely like that.
I was a little worried about how they were going to use the music, because I was like, if you use it too much, it could come off not right, almost like just like we didn't want to do it. But I love Ramin Djawadi. He's one of my favorite composers, and I think the way that they're using it and using Daenerys's themed music mixed together with a new way they're doing it is done very, very well.
It's really very settled, to be honest with you. It's not in your face or anything like that. It's allow us to know that this is a different show than what we got with Game of Thrones, which is something I appreciate. But I just want to say this: when it first opens up, it kind of has that Lord of the Rings kind of feel to it, where they're actually giving us the story of, like, how when Lord of the Rings, they gave us the story of the rings and stuff like that.
Yes.
And now they're giving us detail within this universe, and I love it. I love the setup with it. The dragons, it starts off with the dragon flying and things like that. I love it. I was eating this up at the very first episode. And then you actually see the only thing to tear down the house of the dragon is themselves, because they're their own worst enemy. Even the king's heir to the throne even said it. He goes, I have to protect you from your own self because of the fact that because you're weak.
Yeah.
And they're trying to cover it up like, oh no, he's not weak. Everything is fine here. But yeah.
The smartest thing George R. R. Martin ever did was the way he writes Fire and Blood, the way he writes his other books are subjective. So believe me, the fandom's always like, I feel this way about this character. I feel that because it's history is wrote by the winners. So a lot of these characters that they have, I feel one way about, but another person in the fandom might go, no, I look at them a whole different way. And so there's a lot of different things they can do here. But I always thought, and I like that this is coming across, that King Viserys is a goober who trusts way too many people around him. And it's like Daemon, his brother, might not be the greatest guy. He's almost like Bronn from Game of Thrones.
Right.
Bronn would have been born into a royal family. And he's just like, so he does have bad qualities, but he does have good qualities too. But he knows my brother is trusting the wrong people, and it's not good. This isn't good.
Right, because he even says it to himself. They're benefiting off of him versus getting the advice that he actually needs and stuff like that because of the stuff that he's his own worst enemy. And then of course it's like, okay, what the hell do we do in this situation, right? Where, you know, we just lost our strongest people, and now we have to find an heir to the throne.
Right.
And
now,
so
when you were talking about the setup in the beginning, I love because the woman doing the voiceover in the beginning is Rhaenys, the queen who never was, the black character's wife. Now the exact same thing happened to her, and I like the way they quickly went through the Council of 101 because that can be super boring if you don't know it. It's like, no, that is super boring. But they did a very good job of going, here we go. But I love that they had her do it because it's like she could have done the same exact thing that's about to go down because she had a right to the throne. And then she was like, I'm not going to, I couldn't kick up a bunch of problems, but she didn't. And so it's like, this is almost like her own fight too, of going, you wouldn't let me do it, but now we have this issue going on. So I like that they let her do the voiceover. I thought that was really cool.
I do too. I thought that was actually really neat to have a woman of power explaining through her eyes and then through her lenses of what she's going through versus it being through the eyes and lenses of a man or anything like that too, because we've seen that before. So this is a new way of doing storytelling, which is something I do appreciate. It's like, okay, you know what? You guys want to go on ahead and do your thing. I'm going to let you guys go on ahead. I'm going to stand on the sidelines and let you guys take each other out. And then while you guys take each other out, I'm going to go on ahead and do what I need to do. So that's something that's like very mafioso kind of thing to do in a sense, is letting the other dogs, the alpha males, take each other out because we're high strong and we don't think. Women think with logic. We don't. So in some situations. So so I feel like, you know, this is a way of saying, okay, I'm just going to go and let them go on ahead and I'll get whatever that's left over and then I'll take over from there. That's what I got out of that.
And not only that, I love that. I know her and her husband's relationship is one of the only in Westerosi history that is like documented to be like a healthy, normal relationship. But not just that, I feel like these actors have such good chemistry on screen, but even just them looking at each other when situations are going down, they know, like she knows, she's like, let him act dumb,
right,
act stupid. Okay, go ahead. And I really like what they're doing with her character. And I just want to comment really quick. This is beautiful. Like, just outside of it, out of everything, if it had no sound, no nothing, you didn't know what it was, you'd be going, the detail in this is beautiful. Mm-hmm. Everything about it is gorgeous. It's so pretty. I can't.
It's very cinematic.
Oh, for sure. It's beautifully done.
And another thing I want to bring up too is this: the medieval stuff did not feel like medieval times. It did not feel like I was sitting there with Jim Carrey and Matthew Broderick from The Cable Guy watching a medieval times kind of thing to it. This is the brutality of what it actually is. Don't get me wrong. We had Knight's Tale. We had other stuff. But it doesn't, it's just pretty much sugarcoats what it is to be in the jousting, what it's like to be in this kind of period, and how violent it actually is. I feel like they actually got that. They got that within the storytelling. The cinematography was really good with it. The stunt work was fantastic. I really loved what they did here. And the stunt people. Especially the part where you know how they always have like that one medieval weapon with the spikes on it, and then they hit someone across the face. I'm like, oh my god, I felt that.
Oh yeah, and I'll give you a little. I don't want to give too much away from like what's about to happen, but the main character who uses a Morning Star, that's his main go-to weapon, and he's bad with it. And I'm real excited to see more with that. I'm like, that excites
me a lot more, to be honest with you.
That's his main go-to weapon, and I think he might be one of the only ones in the series that uses a weapon consistently like that. So get ready for some really cool fights with that.
But I also want to go off of the other thing you mentioned about the husband and wife, how they're sitting down there watching this fight go down while the heir to the throne, which happens to be the son that's being born. And he goes, and then like, isn't this a little grotesque for us to watch this go on as there's someone being born? It's kind of like a light into this darkness that they're watching. Hoping, to me, this is like a sense of hope for them. So therefore, yeah, we're watching something grotesque, but at the same time, you're having life being born at this dark moment of this entertainment with these games that's being taken place.
I really like the way they did. Now, I don't know if I don't know, but this is kind of how I took it, especially with the title of the episode with them. It's very similar to how Ned and them were going to do the Hand's tourney about in season 1 of Game of Thrones. But with this, it was the heir's tourney. Okay, well, this heir is being born. Not only is that heir being born, but the one whose heir, Daemon Targaryen, gets unhorsed and falls. And so it's like the fall of House Targaryen all in one thing, showing in one tournament. And I'm like, oh, I see what you're doing here, and I really like it a lot. And that's good writing. And it's like maybe I'm looking too far into it, but I was like, oh, I see what you're doing. This heir is falling. This heir is being born, but doesn't make it. And now here we go. And we have a whole new heir by the end of the episode.
Right. And I liked how they do that, though. I mean, aside from the light and darkness part that I was mentioning, I do like how the heir falls. And then you have this new heir that they're hoping that this heir is actually good. But, it's like, okay, even inside the meetings, I like how the meetings are actually being taken place, because now we actually see how the higher-ups actually operate. Because before, there was no one really in charge of anything. This was just like a doom and gloom kind of place that the Rossie actually had inherited, in a sense, between her and her brother. And so, now we actually get to see it active. We actually get to see people within this kingdom and how they operate and do things, which I find really fascinating.
That was one of the things I was most excited about, because I was saying, I go, when you watch Game of Thrones or whatever, or read it even, we get those slice of life stuff with the Starks. We get to see in all of these houses who's there for power, who actually loves you, who cares about each other, who does whatever. We never got to see that with the Targaryens, because there's only a couple running around. So now we actually get to see a family and who actually cares, who actually just wants power, who's friends with who. Like, we actually get to see that with this family, and I'm super excited to see that on screen.
Same here as well. And, then it's like the council is like, well, what the hell do we do? We have the heir that fell down. And then there's also this other thing. Do we take a chance on a woman being on the throne, which has been against our rules since the very beginning? Or do we take our chances with your brother, who is a loose cannon, who doesn't listen, who sleeps in a brothel and tells everybody at the brothel of his rise, versus him just staying quiet and allowing the system to work?
See, that's interesting, because I didn't take it that way. I took it that they took his words out of context. And it's like, I think that it was more like, okay, I think that him and the one prostitute that he's tight with, I think she was more like, hey, start speaking. And then it kind of got out, but it was like, I don't think he was really I think he definitely was like, yeah, I'm still in line here. I definitely think that was part of it. But I do think that they wanted it to get back to the king of, like, he was talking way more smack than he really was. And it's a complicated thing. And I love that, because Daemon is the one who created the gold cloaks, and he's always hanging out with the common folk, and they don't like that. And that's why the common folk love him so much, because he's always in bars and talking to them and with them, and they're afraid of that. That's why he makes a comment to the Hand, and he's like, if you ever left the Red Keep, maybe you'd know. And I'm not saying Daemon's the greatest, but it's like, he's
got my wheels turning right now.
Yeah, he has their ear, unlike the other highborns do. And so it's like, I don't know. I don't think that I hate the High Towers, so I'm biased. I'm going to put that right out there. But that's just, But no, they don't like that. They don't like that Daemon has this close-knit relationship with whores and barkeeps and stuff, and he can walk down the street and people won't want to kill him. Not everybody who's highborn can do that.
Well, the thing that I like about this is, because now the higher-ups actually want them to go out in the public, out in the open, to make people vote, basically. Too. Right. So, he's going to get the majority of the votes, because of the fact of the matter is, he's out there with them. Out there talking to them, talking to the people. And that's what they're looking for. They're looking for someone to be real with them, versus someone just sitting out in the tower who has no experience of how to talk to regular everyday people. All they know how to do is talk to the higher-ups, the council around them, and other kingdoms. That's all they know. They don't know how to talk to regular or common people. And I think that's where he shines in, versus having, the daughter to the heir to the throne.
And that's
which is
exactly
Bran.
I really like that they like even when he shows up at the tournament, first off, when he came out and stared everybody down, that was so sweet. And when he just went through the line and was staring everybody like, yeah, okay. But that's why the crowd gets so crazy and why they get so upset when he falls, because they're like, no, that's why they call him Prince of the City, because everybody's like, we like him. And it's like they might not know the cruelty part, but they know that he's around and he actually talks to them, and that's a big deal for the Targaryens to do that, because not everybody did that.
Exactly, because if it was just like an everyday, it's like having an everyday person at your house to visit you, and it feels real to them, and they only see what they see, and then of course, whenever the lights go out, that's that's who they really are. They unmask who they actually are. But
Right.
you know, I definitely like that because that gives him more power to actually own the fact that, hey, look, I have the right to this throne versus somebody else. And also, too, the way he listens in on the conversation is like, okay.
See,
and
now
this
I
also,
don't want to get
yeah.
too, I don't want to get too, I don't want to get too caught up in like book stuff. But when they compare him to Maegor the Cruel is the one who created the Red Keep, and he's the one who made all the secret hallways and then killed everybody who worked on it. Then they compare Daemon to Maegor the Cruel, and he's hiding in the walls listening in. Like, I was like, oh, I see what you're doing there. I was like, you are comparing him to this guy, and he's using exactly what Maegor created in the Red Keep to listen in on this meeting. I see what you're doing. Easter eggs, they are book fans, which I really appreciated.
Most definitely. I definitely like how they did that. But yeah, I haven't read this book or anything like that, so I'm glad to have you on here so that way I know what is what, so that way I'm not getting anything crossed up. But from this show, from this standpoint right now, just getting a little bit of the taste of what House of the Dragon is giving us. They gave us so much within an hour and some more minutes of the show of setup and build. Because this is, I could see the brother to the throne, well, the brother basically casting vengeance on his brother for not letting him inherit the throne. So that's where it's going to be this beef war between the two of them, the split.
See, my thing is, I didn't know where they were going to take the girl who is essentially the daughter of the brown-haired girl who's friends with Rhaenyra.
Yeah, Allison.
She's eventually going to marry the king, and her dad is Hand of the King. And I didn't know where they were going to take that, because like I said, the way they're wrote is subjective. I always took it like she was more of a Marjorie Tyrell, and she wanted the power. And in this, they're more of showing like your dad's a creep and pushing that on you. And so I'm really curious where they're going to go with that part of it. But I did like how they were showing her and Rhaenyra were so close, and Rhaenyra almost insinuates like not only is there friendship here, but there might be like a romantic thing here, which could also,
I can sense it,
which could also add to the strife that goes on later on in the conflict of like, not only were we BFFs and this happens, but you knew there was more, I cared about you more in a different way. And now this is happening with my dad. Like, I'm really curious where they're going to go with that. And I have like qualms with it from a book standpoint, but from a cinematic standpoint, I'm like, no, this is very interesting. Sense. Yeah, it's super interesting. And I really like that a lot.
I do too, because it makes sense because of the fact you have this friendship that's building, and then something causes a ride to where now you're dealing with that drama surrounding everything. And also too, I did sense a little bit of Tyrell around that character, around Allison. Even though I haven't read the book or anything, with just the character and the way she moves and the way she talks, it reminds me so much of the Tyrells, to be honest with you.
They are very Tyrellish, and they're very similar. Now, the High Towers, here's the thing, to break it down real fast. The Citadel, where the Maesters are from. Now, notice that there's a lot of Maesters doing a lot of sneaky stuff around here. The Maesters, where they learn, is in Old Town. The High Towers run Old Town. So there's a very close connection between the Maesters, the High Towers, and they're real tight. So it's like, did this baby being born kill her, or did the Maesters have something to do with that? Just so you guys know, there's a lot of Maesters connected to the High Towers.
And the Maesters are always up to something, though. You cannot really trust the Maesters at all because they have their own reasons behind their own political agenda.
Yep. And who funds them? The Hightowers.
Right.
So it's like just to throw that in there into the mix where it's like, and we have this sneaky rat Hand of the King doing sneaky rat stuff, obviously. So it's like right. I'm pleasantly surprised with how they're handling things.
I am too. And also too, this is another thing I wanted to bring up though. With the Maesters, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the ones who was actually starting that rash on the king to make him show the fact that he's showing some type of weakness. So the way they can, because here's the thing, I don't trust the Maesters for any reason at all.
I have a whole
especially how they're all looking at each other and like, what do we do about this situation? He has a rash. What do we do? Oh, I know what we'll do. We'll get this remedy right here. So it happens to be they know the remedy, but they're not going to tell him what the remedy is. It could be good, it could be bad, but they know that is. I'm thinking that they're going to try and kill him, which is not a surprise.
Now, this is how I whenever I talk about Maesters being sneaky rats, I was like, anybody that knows how to heal you knows how to kill you. So look out.
Common logic.
It's a very common thing. Like George R. R. Martin likes to write in circles, and I'm not hating on it. He does it in a very good way, but there's a lot of things that can be. I always explain it like this: the Dance of Dragons, which is the conflict that's going to happen in the show. Remember when Cersei goes and rips up the paper and says, "It don't matter. Robert's dead." That's essentially what's going to go down. Is she goes, "Well, he's dead. What are you going to do about it? Like, I'm going to put my son on the throne. Nobody's going to stop me," and it causes a huge problem. But the Maesters have a huge part that have to do with all of that. And there's a lot of things that happened with other kings, and they say that the Iron Throne, it's always like a mystery because it's like myths, but the Iron Throne will kill you if you're not worthy of it. And a couple times they found rulers dead on the Iron Throne. And it's like, of course, if you really look into it, it's like, oh, did somebody just shove you or did that, but whatever. And so it's like, I liked when they showed him gripping onto the Iron Throne and he had a cut. And then he says something along the line. He's like, I just got it sitting on the throne. I'm fine. This, that, and the other thing. But then it's like you said, so I was thinking maybe is the Iron Throne saying you are not worthy, quote unquote, or are the Maesters adding to that problem? Or is it both? And like I said, of course, the Iron Throne isn't killing people, but it's just like a superstition type deal. And I'm like,
okay, I want to do this with you. Okay. So what if, for instance, it's not the throne, it's actually the Maesters that's doing something to the throne to make it look like it's a legend. So that's what I'm thinking. But here's the thing. I love the actor that's playing the king because of the fact that whenever his brother comes in, Daemon comes in and questions his own authority, and you can see he's uncomfortable. You can actually see the way he's sitting and how the actor's playing that off like he really does have something that's going on with him, but he's trying to play it off like this unsettledness about him. So I definitely like how he's playing off the narrative of that and how great that actor is. And even though his own brother's questioning his own authority, he knows he's right, but also too, he doesn't want to show that he's weak either. So I like that.
Especially comparing to, and now this was my favorite scene in the entire episode, compared to how Daemon was sitting on the throne when Rhaenyra walks in.
Yeah, Rhaenyra,
super comfortable there, and the Kingsguard's like, "Oh my god!" And then she's like, "No, it's fine." And the way they use Valyrian speech is so smart and so well done. And if you notice, like only Daemon and her do that. And then when he gives her the necklace, he says, "A part of our heritage." I'm wondering if maybe only those two really speak Valyrian that much, but it's almost when I'm wondering if like at the funeral when they do it again, I'm like, can other people not understand you? But do all the Targaryens learn it? Or did you two just do that because you guys are so you think keeping your heritage is so important? And I really like that. But the comparison of Daemon sitting on the Iron Throne and his brother, you're right. It's like, but one was very comfortable and isn't supposed to be there, and one is supposed to be there, and he's not very comfortable. Now, was it from your illness, or is that because you're not comfortable ruling?
But going back off that whole entire thing about the heritage with Rhaenyra, I believe that's how you say her name. Rhaenyra, yeah, thank you. But going off of that, and then them speaking their own language, because how many of us actually have our own language when we talk to our own friends or our own family members? So we have our own language, our own way. We won't talk to somebody the same way we talk to a family member or anything. So when we're with that one person, we'll talk a certain way. So I wouldn't be surprised at a young age they kept their heritage and made a promise to themselves to keep the heritage alive and keep their dialect the same.
And,
so, and it feels like
they're the only two shown with their dragons so far. So you're the only two shown with your dragons. You're the only two speaking High Valyrian. And I really like
we know who they are. They're not trying to misconcept anything. It feels like the brother that's on the throne has forgotten who he is and where he comes from and doesn't show dominance over his own kingdom or his own people, even for that matter, the Macers who takes care of him either. He's just letting them run amok, basically, and like, you know what? Whatever you guys want to do, that's fine. I don't care. But as soon as his brother winds up going into a brothel, oh no, we can't have that now. There's just too much celebration going on whenever there was an heir that was that happened to die.
Right.
But
excuse me. And even with when there's little things that I thought were really interesting too, like when he's telling his wife, and I thought the wife did the queen who passes away, she was doing great. And I like that they didn't shy away from, this is a very, like, if you're going to show me boobs and sex and stuff, don't shy away from childbirth is rough. It's rough. And it can be pretty bad, especially back then. And it still can be. And I like that they didn't shy away from, this is bad. Like, this is hard. I liked that. But how they made a comment of, he's like, I had a dream. And he's talking to her when she's in the tub. And he goes, and I heard the bells ring. Now, if you remember what Varys says in Game of Thrones, he's like, the bells always mean something bad, a wedding, a death, this or that. And they're like, and he kind of makes a joke to Tyrion, but also when Daenerys sacks King's Landing and they're like, please ring the bells, that means it's over. And she's like, it's not over. And so it's like the bells don't really mean something good, but we keep thinking they do. So I was like, oh, I like these little things you're putting in there. But I thought that she did a really, really good job of making us feel for her. And I did like that they didn't shy away from that. I really appreciated that. And I just wanted to stick that in there real quick.
I'm glad they actually showed the pain of child labor within this time period, too, to show how rough it actually is. Then the reminiscing of the fact of the bills and stuff is very reminiscent to the Game of Thrones seasons that we got before this. So I definitely like how they're still putting that in as canon. So I definitely like that a lot.
For sure.
But what else would you say that you liked about this episode, though?
Oh, there was tons of things that I really, really liked about this episode. But I will say this: I was saying before it came out, it was Corlys Velaryon is like a cool version of Ned Stark, where Ned is so stoic and things like that. But he was the one going, Stannis is the heir. Then get over it. Like, we might not like him, but Stannis is the heir. Corlys is the one who's like, I always explain him as a more swagger, cooler version of Ned Stark. And I think that he's going to be the heart of this show. I think he's going to be the one we're going to be like, no, he's right. And we really like him. And I like that in every council meeting, he was like, no, listen. And even when they bring up because your wife did whatever, he's like, yeah, I'm not going to back down from any of you because it's the right thing to do. And I really liked how they set up. I thought they did a really good job of showing exactly who each one of these characters are.
Mm-hmm.
We know who Corlys is down and how he will behave. We know how, but his wife is like, I've been running this game. I know what to do. And they make a really good power couple. I love that. We know exactly who Daemon is by the end of this episode. We know exactly how the king is. We know exactly who everybody is by the end of this episode, except for, because there's going to be a time jump, except for Rhaenyra and Alicent, who are going to get older. But everybody else, we know exactly who they are.
Where they stand. Right, because even whenever we have Rhaena and everything too, when she gets crowned, and now everything is now in her hands and her possession, and it's about according to how is she gonna do good? Is she gonna feel? What's gonna happen? Then of course you have the brother, like I said, of the who went out to him and stuff like that. But I think that this is a great setup. I think this is the perfect way to go about it as far as the first episode goes. I think this is actually a perfect episode. There's not really anything negative I could say about this episode at all, as far as the setup, the world building, and also too, okay, I remember watching the first season of Game of Thrones, right? And I remember, we have House of Stark, we have this house, we have that house. I'm like, I have ADD, people. Can we just set up with 2 houses and be fine?
Right.
I had to go back and rewatch Game of Thrones again when I'm not too tired to actually understand the world build and the way they do things. So once I watched it again for the second or third time, I understood what they were going for in the first season. Going into this one, to me, I think this one doesn't feel so convoluted to where it's overshadowed with several other characters. We can follow the characters and can know the characters right away from beat for beat of who they are and what we're going to be getting in the future as far as the episodes go.
And there's like a couple things, like you said, like I thought this did a good job of going, okay, for people that might not be able to keep up with a billion different names, this did a really good job of setting up who are the major players, and then everybody else who it's like, if you really want to get into it, you can. There's a lot there, like especially at the tournament when one of the riders from House Baratheon, because the black guy's wife is she's half Baratheon. So when her cousin comes up and it's like, let me have your favor, to me that said, I'm showing support for you and I always will. And it's like, okay, so what are you saying to all the lords? And then it happened when Daemon asks for the Hightower girl's favor. He's like saying to the Hand of the King, yeah, screw you. I just took your daughter's favor. You know that I'm kind of trying to stick it to you. And then when the other guy who beats him goes up and is like, let me have Rhaenyra's favor, it's like this back and forth of we're saying something, but we're not saying something. And it's like those little parts, if you really want to deep dive into it, you can. But when it comes to as a whole, it's like, no, we got the basic beats and we're good. And you did a really great job of setting that up. And then it's like for the freaks like me, I can go in and be like, oh, I see what you're doing over there. And I see what you're doing over here. And I can appreciate that stuff. And I really do think they did a great job. I'm just more concerned about where are we going to take these characters when we do more than one season? But that's for another conversation. I'm so excited to recap this with you. I really am. Me too. But I'm trying to think of like, are there any other huge things that I really loved? And I'm like, I think we covered it. The dragons look great.
The dragons look great for a TV series, to be honest with you. They look just as
armor. We have a dragon wearing full Valyrian armor.
I know.
Coolest thing I've ever seen.
That was freaking awesome. I'm not gonna lie.
That's sick.
Here's the thing. I love dragons. Dragons is my favorite fantasy creature. I actually have a high school ring that had a dragon on one side and yin yang on the other. So dragons is my thing. I love dragons. But I was geeking out the whole time. I was on the edge of my seat, shoving popcorn in my face. I love the world built for this. This is something that I'm definitely excited to have Game of Thrones back in my life again that I never knew I was going to be excited about. It's good to have a show to actually look forward to weekly now, aside from, She-Hulk and stuff like that. But it's good to actually have something on a Sunday night now. Yeah. To feel excited about.
Yep. Nope. I agree with you 100%. And yeah, like I said, we can definitely, there's things I could nitpick, but I'm like, no, that's just my book reading. But show wise, no, this was great. And it was entertaining and it was fun and it was compelling. And I really cared. And they made me care about characters I didn't think I was going to care about. And that speaks volumes.
That's awesome though. So get this, I would like to actually have you on here for next Monday when we actually do our episode 2. So, because episode 2, 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So if you guys love House of Dragon, this is your place to be at House of MLU and House of Motor City Nerds here at Movie Lovers Unite. For everybody that's tuning in tonight, don't forget to smash that like button. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I thank everyone that tuned in tonight. And always until next time, guys, have a great and safe night. And always until next time, tomorrow morning, I'm dropping another little short film review at 9 o'clock a.m. Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern Time called The Movie Goer. So check that out. And always until next time, guys, bye-bye.